Get ready to witness one of the most shocking courtroom moments in Judge Judy history. When Vivian Blackwell, the 42-year-old wife of tech billionaire Marcus Blackwell, walked into the courtroom wearing a $12,000 Chanel suit and an 8-carat diamond ring worth more than most people's houses. She had absolutely no idea that her entire world was about to collapse on national television. This wasn't just any wealthy woman having a bad day in court. This was a billionaire's wife who believed her husband's $4.7 billion fortune made her completely untouchable, immune to consequences, and superior to everyone around her. She strutted in carrying a Hermes Birkin bag worth ba-1 million, the kind of accessory that costs more than the average American family earns in 2 years. She carried herself like she owned not just the courtroom, but everyone in it. What started as arrogant laughter directed straight at Judge Judy's face ended with her sobbing uncontrollably, begging for mercy from the same judge she had just mocked and humiliated in front of millions of viewers. But here's what makes this story absolutely insane. What elevates it beyond just another entitled rich person getting their comeuppance? Vivian didn't just lose her case. She didn't just get embarrassed on national television. What Judge Judy uncovered in that courtroom was so devastating, so completely shocking that it exposed Vivian's entire lifestyle as a systematic fraud built on the exploitation of vulnerable workers. We're talking about a woman who spent $127,000 on luxury shopping in a single month, while refusing to pay her personal stylist a $3,500 monthly salary. We're talking about someone who dropped $15,000 on one dinner party, but claimed she couldn't afford to compensate the young woman who worked 40 hours a week organizing her 300-piece designer wardrobe. Judge Judy had been setting a trap from the very first question. And every designer label Vivian flaunted, every dismissive comment she made, every arrogant gesture she threw around was being cataloged by a legal mind that had crushed entitled people for 25 years before Vivian was even born. Picture this scene clearly in your mind. Vivian Blackwell is the kind of woman who has never worked a legitimate day in her life since marrying into billions at age 28. She's the kind of person who fires housekeepers for looking at her the wrong way, who treats service workers like furniture that occasionally needs replacing, who returns designer dresses after wearing them once with the tags carefully sewn back in like she invented the scam. She spent $80,000 every single month on her American Express Black Card, money she never earned, never worked for, never sacrificed anything to obtain. She had 3 personal assistants whose entire job was managing her shopping appointments and social calendar. This woman walked into Judge Judy's courtroom like she was gracing a charity gala with her presence. Like everyone there should feel honored that someone of her elevated status would even acknowledge their existence. Her confidence was off the charts, completely stratospheric, built on a foundation of wealth she married into and a sense of superiority she absolutely did not earn. The case seemed simple enough on the surface, almost boring by courtroom standards. Vivian was suing her former personal stylist, a 29-year-old woman named Jennifer Rodriguez, for $15,000. The claim was straightforward theft. Vivian alleged that Jennifer had stolen designer clothes worth $50,000 from her massive walk-in closet pieces Vivian claimed were irreplaceable, priceless, and essential to her lifestyle. But Jennifer had filed a counterclaim that told a completely different story, one that accused Vivian of refusing to pay her for 8 months of full-time work wages totaling $22,000, that Vivian simply decided she didn't feel like paying. What the audience watching from home didn't know, and what Vivian herself was completely unaware of in her bubble of entitled ignorance, was that Judge Judy had already spotted 20 separate Inconsistencies in Vivian's initial paperwork before the case even started. 23 lies. 23 contradictions. 23 red flags that told Judge Judy exactly what kind of person she was dealing with. And Judge Judy was absolutely ready to make an example out of her. One that would echo through courtroom history and across every social media platform on earth. Smash that like button right now. Because what you're about to witness will restore your faith that justice can still prevail. That arrogance has a price, and that karma has absolutely perfect timing when it decides to strike. Hit subscribe, because this case becomes a masterclass in why wealth doesn't equal wisdom, why money can't buy respect, and why Judge Judy's courtroom remains the one place where your bank account balance means absolutely nothing and your character means everything. This isn't just a courtroom dispute over stolen clothes and unpaid wages. This is what happens when unlimited money collides head-on with unlimited arrogance, when someone who has never faced consequences meets the one authority figure who cannot be bought, intimidated, or impressed by billion-dollar net worths and designer accessories. The Judge Judy courtroom was buzzing with its usual electric energy that Thursday afternoon. Cameras were rolling, capturing what the producers and crew assumed would be another routine small claims dispute for millions of Americans to watch from their living rooms during lunch breaks and lazy afternoons. The studio audience had settled into their seats, expecting the familiar back-and-forth drama they'd come to love. Wealthy people fighting over relatively small amounts of money. Production assistants made their final checks on lighting and sound equipment. The bailiff, Petrie Hawkinsbird, took his customary position near the bench with the calm professionalism of someone who had seen literally everything in his decades alongside Judge Judy. Judge Judy herself reviewed her notes one last time, her sharp eyes scanning the case file with the practiced efficiency of a legal mind that had processed over 20,000 cases. Nobody in that room, not the crew, not the audience, not even Judge Judy herself had any clue they were about to witness a moment that would become television history and break the internet within hours of airing. This was supposed to be Vivian Blackwell's moment of triumph, her opportunity to publicly humiliate the woman she viewed as nothing more than ungrateful help who dared to challenge someone of her social status. She had spent 3 full weeks preparing for this appearance, not because she was worried about losing, but because she wanted her performance to be perfect. She watched Judge Judy episodes to study the format. She practiced her arguments in front of the full-length mirrors in her master bedroom suite, a space larger than most people's entire apartments. In her mind, this case wasn't really about recovering $15,000 for stolen clothes. The money meant nothing to someone whose husband could lose $1 million in the stock market and not even notice. No, this was about proving a point, about demonstrating to everyone watching that people like Jennifer Rodriguez needed to know their place in the social hierarchy, that consequences existed for workers who dared to speak up against their wealthy employers. She even bragged to her friends at the country club that she was going to make Judge Judy look foolish on national television, that she would show America how the real world works for people at her level of wealth and status. Vivian's entrance into that courtroom was nothing short of theatrical. She didn't simply walk through the door like a normal person arriving for a legal proceeding. She glided. She swept in. She made an entrance as if she were arriving at a red carpet premiere, where rare photographers needed to capture her best angles. Her blonde hair had been freshly blown out that morning at her standing appointment, which cost $800 per session, styled in perfect waves that didn't move even when she turned her head. Her makeup was flawless, applied by a professional who came to her home at 6 in the morning to ensure every detail was camera-ready. The $12,000 Chanel suit fit her like it had been painted on, which it essentially had been during multiple fitting appointments with a personal tailor. The 8-carat diamond ring on her finger caught the studio lights and threw tiny sparks of refracted light across the courtroom, like she was carrying a disco ball on her hand. Her perfectly manicured nails, done just the day before for $200, tapped impatiently against her $85,000 Hermes Birkin bag as she surveyed the room with barely concealed contempt. Her body language screamed entitlement from the moment she crossed the threshold. She immediately checked her iPhone, right there in the courtroom where phones are supposed to be silenced and put away, scrolling through messages as if she had far more important things to deal with than these tedious legal proceedings. She looked around the room with an expression that made her assessment unmistakably clear. The audience members in their everyday clothes, the court staff in their professional but unremarkable attire. Even Judge Judy herself, seated behind the bench, all of them registered in Vivian's eyes as lesser beings, people existing on a lower plane of society than someone of her wealth and status. Her sunglasses, expensive designer shades that cost more than a decent used car, were perched on top of her head, even though she was indoors in a courtroom with controlled lighting. It was a power move, a fashion statement, a signal that she lived by different rules than ordinary people who understood basic courtroom etiquette and respect. The contrast when Jennifer Rodriguez entered could not have been more stark or more visually dramatic. Jennifer was a 29-year-old Latina woman wearing a modest business suit she had likely bought specifically for this court appearance, professional, but clearly off the rack from a department store. Not custom-tailored, not a designer label, just appropriate and respectful. Her hands were trembling slightly as she clutched a worn manila folder containing receipts, time logs, text message printouts, and every piece of documentation she had carefully collected over 8 months of unpaid labor. You could see the nervousness in her eyes, the fear of someone who understood she was about to face off against a person with essentially unlimited legal resources and social connections. But beneath that nervousness was something stronger: determination, dignity, the quiet resolve of someone who knew she had been wronged and refused to stay silent. Judge Judy began the proceedings with her signature, no-nonsense approach, her voice cutting through the courtroom air with the precision of a surgical scalpel. "Ms. Blackwell, you're suing Ms. Rodriguez for $15,000, claiming she stole designer clothing from your home. Tell me exactly what happened," was a simple, straightforward question the kind Judge Judy had asked literally thousands of times in her decades on the bench. But Vivian's response immediately signaled to everyone watching that this case was going to be anything but ordinary. Instead of answering directly with facts and a timeline, Vivian launched into a performance that would have made community theater directors cringe. "Your Honor," she began, her voice dripping with fake sophistication that screamed nouveau-riche entitlement. "This woman completely violated my trust in the most egregious way possible. I opened my home to her, gave her access to my private spaces, treated her like family, and she repaid that generosity by stealing irreplaceable pieces from my wardrobe collection. Then she made her first critical mistake. Rather than sticking to the facts Judge Judy had asked for, Vivian began editorializing, adding commentary like, as anyone with any sense would understand, and, obviously, she has no concept of respect for other people's property. She punctuated her statements with dramatic eye rolls and exaggerated sighs, treating the courtroom like her personal stage for a one-woman show about how difficult it is to find trustworthy help in today's world. Judge Judy's eyebrows lifted slightly, a subtle warning sign longtime viewers had learned to recognize as the calm before the storm. "Ms. Blackwell," she interrupted, her tone still professional but edged with steel, "I didn't ask for your character analysis or social commentary. I asked what happened to your clothing. Can you answer that specific question?" The room shifted. The audience could feel it's that electric moment right before lightning strikes. But Vivian, blinded by her own arrogance and sense of superiority, missed the warning entirely. Instead of backing down, instead of recognizing she was about to step off a cliff, she doubled down. She let out an exaggerated sigh of the same condescending sound she probably reserved for store clerks who couldn't understand her. "Complicated coffee," Orderon said with barely concealed irritation. "Well, if you'll actually let me finish my explanation." "Your Honor, I was trying to provide the necessary context for you to fully understand the situation." The courtroom went dead silent. Even the camera operators seemed to freeze. In 25 years on the bench, Judge Judy had built a reputation for not tolerating disrespect, and Vivian had just crossed a line most people knew better than to approach. But the disaster was only beginning. Vivian's phone buzzed inside her handbag, and she actually astonishingly reached for it during her testimony. She pulled it out and glanced at the screen while Judge Judy was reviewing paperwork. Judge Judy's head snapped up immediately. "Ms. Blackwell, put that phone away right now." Vivian had the audacity to respond. "It's my husband calling from Tokyo. He's closing a $1 billion acquisition deal, and I need to make sure everything is on track." Judge Judy's voice dropped into that dangerously quiet register that longtime viewers know means someone is about to be destroyed. "I don't care if it's the President of the United States calling to discuss nuclear launch codes. You are in my courtroom, and you will put that phone away immediately, or I will have the bailiff confiscate it and hold you in contempt." Vivian complied, but with an exaggerated eye roll so dramatic the cameras captured it in perfect high definition. An eye roll that would later become a viral GIF, shared millions of times across social media with captions about entitled rich people getting their comeuppance. Then Judge Judy did what she does best. She turned her attention to Jennifer Rodriguez and asked her to present her side of the story. Jennifer spoke with quiet dignity, her voice steady, despite her obvious nervousness about confronting someone with so much wealth and power. She explained how Vivian had hired her in January as a personal stylist, promising a salary of $3,500 per month. She described working 40 to 50 hours a week shopping for Vivian, organizing her massive walk-in closet containing more than 300 designer pieces, coordinating outfits for charity, galas, and social events, and essentially being on call whenever Vivian decided she needed fashion assistance. Jennifer presented 8 months of unpaid invoices, meticulously detailed time logs showing every hour she worked, and text messages where she politely asked about payment and was repeatedly promised it would come next week. She showed bank statements proving she never received a single payment beyond the first month. The evidence was overwhelming, organized, methodical, and precise, the kind of documentation that showed Jennifer had been preparing for this moment, knowing she would need every scrap of proof to fight someone with Vivian's resources. Vivian couldn't contain herself. She repeatedly interrupted Jennifer's testimony, standing up dramatically and shouting, "That's not true. She's lying. This is completely fabricated." Judge Judy finally had enough. "Ms. Blackwell, sit down and be quiet. You will get your turn to respond, but right now you are going to listen without interruption, or I will find you in contempt of court. Do you understand me?" Vivian sat down, but not before muttering just loudly enough for the microphones to catch it. "This is absolutely ridiculous. I shouldn't have to sit here and be accused like some common criminal." Then came the moment that changed everything, the moment replayed millions of times across social media and cemented itself as the defining image of entitled wealth colliding with immovable justice. Judge Judy pulled out Jennifer's evidence folder and began examining the photographs Jennifer had taken of Vivian's closet for organizational purposes during her employment. These weren't random snapshots. They were detailed, methodical photographs showing every section of the massive walk-in closet every designer piece hanging in perfect order, every shoe displayed on custom shelving, every handbag arranged by color and season. And this was what made the photographs absolutely devastating to Vivian's case. Judge Judy looked up from the folder with that unmistakable expression longtime viewers recognize instantly, the look that signals she's about to dismantle someone's entire argument. Using facts they never saw coming. "Ms. Blackwell," she said, "you claim Ms. Rodriguez stole approximately $50,000 worth of designer clothing from your closet. You listed items including 3 Chanel jackets, 2 Gucci dresses, 4 pairs of Christian Louboutin shoes, and multiple handbags. Is that correct?" Vivian nodded eagerly, convinced Judge Judy was finally focusing on the theft rather than the unpaid wages. "Yes, Your Honor, exactly. Those are just some of the pieces she took. The actual total is probably much higher, but I can't remember every single item because I own so many things." Judge Judy held up the photographs, angling them so the courtroom cameras could capture them clearly. These photographs were taken by Ms. Rodriguez as part of her organizational system for your wardrobe. They are dated and time-stamped by your own home security system, which Ms. Rodriguez accessed with your explicit permission to document her work. She continued calmly, deliberately. "These photos were taken on September 15th, which, according to your own testimony, was 2 weeks after Ms. Rodriguez stopped working for you. And here's what's fascinating, Ms. Blackwell. Every single item you claim was stolen is visible in these photographs, hanging in your closet 2 weeks after you claim they were taken. Would you like to explain that?" The color drained from Vivian's face so fast it looked as though someone had pulled a plug. Her mouth opened and closed several times as she searched for words that wouldn't come. Finally, she stammered, "Those photographs must be fake. She obviously photoshopped them or manipulated the dates somehow. You can do anything with computers these days." Judge Judy's expression could have frozen molten lava. "Ms. Blackwell, these images contain embedded metadata from your security system. They are authenticated by timestamps from equipment you own in your home using your security codes. Are you suggesting Ms. Rodriguez hacked your home security system to fabricate evidence?" But Vivian wasn't done digging. She tried again, her voice slipping into a wheedling, manipulative tone that might have worked on people she could intimidate or buy off. "Your Honor, even if those specific items weren't taken, she still took other things. I know she did. I just can't provide a complete list because I own so much that it's impossible to keep track of everything. That's why I hire people like her in the first place." Judge Judy leaned forward, her eyes locked on Vivian like a predator that had just spotted wounded prey. "So let me make sure I understand your position correctly. You're suing for $15,000 for stolen items you cannot name, cannot prove existed, never reported to the police, and which appear in photographs taken after they were allegedly stolen. Is that an accurate summary of your case?" Whatever passed for Vivian's legal instincts, the ones she didn't actually possess. Despite her frequent claims of understanding the law better than real attorneys finally recognized, she was losing badly. She shifted tactics completely. "Your Honor, the real issue here isn't about a few pieces of clothing. The real issue is that this woman, Jennifer, wasn't performing her duties adequately. She was always late, always making mistakes, always needing supervision. I was essentially training her, giving her experience and exposure to high-end fashion that she never could have accessed otherwise. That's valuable. That's worth something." Judge Judy's voice took on the tone that made her famous, that sharp blend of disbelief and righteous anger that millions of viewers tune in specifically to witness. "Ms. Blackwell, are you actually arguing that working for you without pay was compensation enough because Ms. Rodriguez got to look at expensive clothing?" Amazingly, impossibly, Vivian doubled down. "Your Honor, people at my level, we provide opportunities that are worth more than money. Jennifer got to attend events, meet influential people, build her portfolio with high-profile clients. She should have been paying me for that access, and that was the moment everything tipped. Judge Judy began delivering her assessment. Her voice heavy with decades of experience dealing with people exactly like Vivian. Ms. Blackwell, from everything I've seen here today, you have no case whatsoever. You exploited a young woman who trusted you, refused to pay her for 8 months of full-time labor, and then fabricated false theft allegations to avoid paying what you legitimately owe. This is one of the clearest cases of wage theft and employer exploitation I've encountered in my 25 years on this bench. That's when Vivian laughed. Not a nervous laugh. Not an uncomfortable chuckle. A full-throated, genuinely amused laugh that echoed through the courtroom like a gunshot. She turned and looked directly into the camera, making eye contact with millions of viewers at home, and said with a smirk dripping with condescension, "Can you believe this? She actually thinks I'm going to pay this girl." Then she turned back to Judge Judy. And what came out of her mouth next sealed her fate completely. "Your Honor, with all due respect, you clearly don't understand how the real world works for people at my level. People like Jennifer, no offense to her, but they should feel grateful for opportunities to work alongside success. To be around luxury and sophistication, that experience, that exposure, it's worth far more than some paycheck she'd probably just waste anyway." The courtroom didn't just go silent. It went beyond silence into a space where even breathing felt too loud, where the air itself seemed to stop moving, where time appeared to freeze as everyone processed what they had just witnessed. Judge Judy slowly rose from her bench. Anyone who had ever watched even a single episode of her show knew exactly what that meant. When Judge Judy stands to deliver judgment, it means someone has crossed a line so far beyond acceptable that ordinary authority is no longer enough to convey the magnitude of their failure. Her face was a mask of controlled fury, the kind of expression forged by 25 years of dealing with liars, cheats, and frauds, but rarely encountering someone with Vivian's particular combination of wealth, arrogance, and complete lack of basic human decency. "Ms. Blackwell," Judge Judy began, her voice carrying absolute moral authority. "In my 25 years presiding over approximately 20,000 cases, I have seen every variety of human behavior. I've seen liars who were at least clever enough to make their lies somewhat believable. I've seen thieves who had the decency to show remorse when caught. I've seen frauds who at least understood they were doing something wrong. But I have rarely, very rarely encountered someone with your level of contempt for basic human decency, for the dignity of labor, and for the people who work to make your comfortable lifestyle possible." Vivian tried to interrupt, her voice rising with indignation. "Your Honor, I think you're being completely unfair. Be quiet." Judge Judy snapped, her voice cutting like a blade. "I am not finished, and you will not speak until I tell you that you may speak. Do you understand me?" The judgment came down like hammer blows, each word precisely chosen for maximum impact. Your lawsuit for $15,000 is dismissed with prejudice, meaning you may never bring these fabricated theft allegations again. You owe Ms. Rodriguez $22,000 in unpaid wages that you withheld through 8 months of exploitation. In addition, I am awarding her $25,000 in punitive damages for your malicious false accusations, which could have destroyed her reputation and her ability to work in this industry. Your total obligation is $47,000. Vivian's mouth fell open in shock, her carefully applied makeup unable to conceal the horror spreading across her face. But Judge Judy wasn't finished. "Furthermore, you will pay Ms. Rodriguez's legal fees of $5,000 and court costs of $2,500, bringing your total obligation to $54,500. And Ms. Blackwell, you need to understand this very clearly. This judgment is against you personally. not your husband. Not a corporate entity. You, if you do not pay within 30 days. Ms. Rodriguez may pursue collection, including liens on any property in your name, garnishment of any income you personally earn, and a public record that will follow you for the rest of your life. Vivian finally found her voice, shrill and desperate. I don't have property in my name. Everything belongs to my husband. I don't have income. You can't collect from me. Judge Judy's response was delivered with surgical precision. Then I suggest you ask your billionaire husband for an allowance, Ms. Blackwell, because this debt is yours to pay. Perhaps he can deduct it from your monthly shopping budget. Then Judge Judy did something she rarely did. She turned away from Vivian entirely and addressed Jennifer Rodriguez directly, her voice softening with genuine compassion. Ms. Rodriguez, I am sorry you were exploited and then forced to defend yourself against false accusations in this courtroom. You deserve to be paid fairly from the very first day. Labor has dignity. Work has value. You have dignity and value, regardless of what this woman tried to make you believe about yourself. I hope this judgment helps you rebuild and move forward. She then turned back to Vivian, her eyes cold as ice. Shame on you, Ms. Blackwell. Shame on you for exploiting a young woman who trusted you. Shame on you for treating another human being as if she existed solely for your convenience. Shame on you for believing your husband's money made you superior to people who actually work for a living. The word shame shattered something deep inside Vivian. She had spent her entire adult life being envied, admired, courted by people desperate for access to her wealth and connections. No one had ever shamed her not since she married into billions and surrounded herself with layers of money and sycophants, who told her exactly what she wanted to hear. She made one final, desperate attempt, her voice cracking with genuine panic. Your Honor, please, you have to understand. If this airs on national television, it will humiliate my husband. His business partners will see it. His investors will question his judgment. Can't we settle this privately? I'll pay her double, triple what you've ordered just. Please don't broadcast this. Judge Judy's response was final and absolute. Your concern is your husband's embarrassment, not the 17 other workers my staff discovered you've exploited over the past 5 years. Not the more than $200,000 in combined wages you've stolen from people who couldn't fight back. This case is being broadcast to millions of people. Ms. Blackwell, your humiliation is public, permanent, and completely deserved. Perhaps next time you'll think twice before treating human beings like disposable objects. The gavel came down with a sound like thunder, final and irrevocable. Within 2 hours of the episode airing, Vivian's laughter became the #1 trending clip across every major social media platform. The hashtag Billionaire's Wife Destroyed accumulated more than 3 million posts in its first day. News outlets from CNN to local stations picked up the story with headlines like Judge Judy exposes systematic wage theft by billionaire's wife and when entitlement meets justice. Vivian's moment of arrogant laughter was edited into memes, reaction videos, and commentary pieces about wealth, inequality, and worker exploitation. Her name became synonymous with entitled wealth and the belief that money places someone above basic human decency. The California Labor Commissioner opened a formal investigation that uncovered 23 additional workers with unpaid wage claims totaling $347,000 over 7 years. Marcus Blackwell's PR team went into full crisis mode, issuing statements claiming he was unaware of his wife's employment practices and immediately paying all legitimate claims. Sources close to the family reported he was furious over the public embarrassment and allegedly cut Vivian's monthly allowance from $80,000 to $15,000, telling her she needed to learn what money actually meant. Jennifer Rodriguez used her $54,500 judgment to pay off student loans and launch her own styling business. Building a client list of people who specifically wanted to support someone who had stood up to exploitation. Within 6 months, she hired 2 assistants and paid them $25 an hour, always on time. Always with respect. Vivian's social circle evaporated overnight. Charity boards quietly removed her from committees. Her country club began forgetting her reservations. Private school parent groups created new chat threads without her. She eventually moved to the Blackwell's London property to escape American media scrutiny. Her Instagram account went private after losing 400,000 followers in a single month. 1 year later, she and Marcus remained married but lived on separate continents. Her dreams of social prominence were destroyed by 47 seconds of laughter, proof that wealth cannot shield you from accountability when you finally encounter someone who refuses to be impressed by your bank account. In Judge Judy's courtroom, wealth means nothing. Character means everything. And arrogant laughter is often the last sound someone makes before reality dismantles everything they believed made them untouchable. This is what happens when a billionaire's wife learns that no amount of money can buy respect, dignity, or immunity from consequences. This is Vivian Blackwell's story, a permanent reminder that justice still exists for those brave enough to demand it.